Anyway, yeah. So as I was saying before, right? When in life, when things don't go smoothly, right? People either use that as a reason not to do something because deep down they didn't want to do it in the first place, or they understand that there's always going to be obstacles in life, and if you want something, you've got to keep fighting through whatever it is to get there. And it really is nothing to do with the action. So it has nothing to do with, say, trying to connect to your Skype and it's not working. It's to do with the mindset in the first place. It's like, if you know deep down, if you've
Yeah,
got friends coming over, you're going to be prepared. You'll have like wine glasses, you'll have food in the fridge, drink in the fridge, you'll have enough space. You prepare the house, right? Because you are expecting it. So you've already done the work that needs to be done in order for the event to happen. If you didn't want it to happen, then you're going to have a shithole of a house, no food in the fridge, no drinks, no space. And then you'll be like, "Do you know what? Maybe it's best we do this another time." So deep down, you
so true.
unconsciously didn't want it in the first place.
So true. Yeah, and it's funny because like I don't know, it's like what even is an obstacle when you look at life, you know? It's like I don't know, I think it depends on your mindset because you can see something as a sign or a problem or you can see it as an opportunity. And I think that most of us are kind of pessimistic for the most part. You know, because we look at things like, I don't know, I always look at whenever something happens, you know, is this happening to me or is it happening for me, right? It sounds cliche, but it's so true. And your mindset in being able to flip that is so, so important.
Interesting, because I did a podcast yesterday with somebody called Josh, and what I find is that literally in real time, my thoughts are bringing back what I'm thinking. It could just be, I want to go to a certain Indian takeaway, and my mum decides to go to that one instead. You're saying what you just said now. You're the opposite side of the world. He was basically saying that when he walks into a room, into like a building, that is life still existing in that building when he's not there. So if he's looking at the building, is what's happening in there real, or is it only real when I go there? And when he's not there, is it the same? Is he having an effect on that room when he walks in? That in terms of a parallel world, is there a different topic and energy and lifestyle and conversation that's happening? So bringing it onto, is this happening to you or for you? Well, for you, it could be it's teaching you something, but then you could say, if I'm wanting to be taught, then I'm doing things unconsciously so I can learn from them. And otherwise, you're just simply energy in space doing nothing, right? So it's really all
Right,
created by ourselves. Or is it
right.
happening for you, to you, for you, to you, meaning it's something else that out of your control, and you've just got to accept it, and it's how you respond that makes it have a meaning. Like the crystals, we believe that when you
Yeah,
put them in the sun, it does some magical shit, and it's like, well, does it really do anything, or is it me wanting to believe that it does? Which means I could have created that thought myself, that feeling of goodness is coming. Like people walk under a ladder, they expect bad luck. They fucking create that themselves. Not do the ladder.
totally. Yeah,
See a
totally.
black cat, walk over drains. You put out that thought, fuck, I walked over 3 drains, I'm going to fucking die tomorrow. And then you die. You literally were expecting death to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's true though. And that's like literally why we study the placebo effect, because I mean, the fact that it even exists is enough for me. You know, the fact that we have to we have to use science to determine whether or not a pharmaceutical drug is going to work on somebody more than their mind's ability to work, which I think is fascinating. You know, it's like if this actually exists, then it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the ladder or the cat or, you know, the like bad omens of bad luck or whatever. Like what matters is what you believe, and what you believe is what you give power to. So we're
Is it?
all literally creating like our own crazy worlds.
So my mum has an elephant in the conservatory, right? It's a nice elephant made out of glass. It's smooth at the back, as in flat, and at the front is the elephant's head. Now, she would have spent, say, 10 quid on that elephant, maybe more. It's facing the window. So we might as well just have a block of ice. Might as well have a block of ice standing in there, which is the same thing, because you don't know what's on the opposite side of the ice. It could be a zebra, it could be fucking like numbers, it could be anything. It could be a Brussels sprout. It's because what I see walking in the conservatory is just flat glass. And so the
Right.
nice elephant that's been graved out is facing the window. Why? Because elephants give you luck if they're facing the window. And I'm like, do you understand that it's what you are giving, that you're whatever you're meaning you're giving that is what you're expecting. So when she goes up the stairs, she always waits for me to go back up, or she goes back down, and it's like all that time of me going back up the stairs and you going back down the stairs. And it's like, people follow these patterns and they don't question them. It came from her grandmother and her mother's mother and her mother's mother. And it's like, who even said this? And it's just nonsense fed down. And it all comes down to what you are expecting to happen, which can be done without the physical object, like the placebo effect of a tablet.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think even just the energy, like to take it back a step further, even just the energy behind feeling as though you need something to create luck, like that's an energy in and of itself, right? So if you're expecting that you need something in order to have better luck, then you already don't believe that. And you're probably going to experience situations that prove that you don't have luck as it is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People think people are lucky and people are not lucky. And it's like that person who is lucky, quotes, is expecting what they want to happen all the time, period. And because they're expecting it, they're putting it out in the universe and it's happening. People who
Right.
can't find their keys, can't find their wallet, they spill a drink over at work, they're expecting all this shit to happen. So they don't do anything about it, such as hanging the keys up at the same place so they know where the keys are, putting their wallet in the same drawer. They don't put their drink by the fucking laptop so it doesn't spill over. Like they put it outside of their surroundings so they don't knock it. Simple shit like that. And it all comes down to providing a solution to a problem when it occurs. Like I was this person where nothing went right, couldn't find anything, always a problem, always forgot my shit, and I wanted to kill myself because it was just like fucking Satan's after me. And then I learned the law of attraction and power of the mind, and then it was about becoming aware that we are creating this by either allowing it to happen or simply taking action on what we want to happen. And I wasn't taking action, I was just allowing the same shit to occur over and over and again. And when I put everything in order and I created a system and I stuck to the system and I didn't make the same mistake twice, which I do not and haven't done since I was 21, I'm 28 almost, everything is in order. I don't make the same mistake twice because the mistake is something happens that you don't want to happen. So what do? You either allow it to happen again or you put a system in place so it doesn't. And if you keep putting systems in place, problems don't occur. It's like if an ex-partner cheats on you and okay, well, what happened? What was the signs? Well, he went out for a cigarette, even he didn't smell a smoke. Well, next time either don't have a partner who smokes or go out with him. You're constantly doing the opposite to last time, which is not making the same mistake twice.
Well, that's such a mindset shift. I think like a lot of people are in a place where it's like we sort of, as much as we would never want to admit it, we kind of enjoy being a victim in our lives because then there's absolutely zero responsibility. So when things are, and I'm in that place of being a victim and things are happening to me, it's like poor me because it's not my fault. It's happening to me and I have no control over my life. And when you make that shift, and for everybody it's different, like I'm curious how you came to that place to realize, hold on a second, I'm the common denominator and I'm the one that has the consciousness and the will and the determination to find a solution. It's like when you make that switch, however you come to the place in, the juncture where you realize, wait, I have control, and you make that switch into being a creator of your life versus, or even just more of like an active participant, versus like an innocent bystander that's a victim that's just kind of, standing right in front of the puddle while the bus drives by, just waiting to get soaked, and it's like, I think that's a tricky shift for people to make because at some level, and this is triggering, so like trigger alert, that we actually enjoy being imprisoned. We actually enjoy our own suffering and we actually enjoy being a victim because we come to this place where we allow all of those things to be our identity. And then who would we be if we weren't this person that had this problem or that always had this same problem? It's like taking away our identity to change the situation. It's a big thing for people to switch.
So when I was in like primary school, right, these people, they didn't bully me because bullying's where they keep giving you the abuse and you don't do anything back. I kept giving it back. So technically it's classed as bullying, but I was provoking it and starting it again. So would it have happened if I did nothing? Who knows? I was always a person who wanted the last word and I provoked, right? So technically it's my fault and it's not bullying, but it had massive effects on me to the point where I used to have dreams about them and I used to beat the shit out of them instead because it's all about me gaining control. I would have fears that they were chasing me in my dreams. I didn't see those people for like 10 years after I left school because of, I blocked them out basically, and I used to wish they would die every single day, right? Which I didn't. Which then I realized is you can't just wish death upon somebody. They probably won't die. That's what that's what I learned, because
Yeah.
we like, because
Well, let's
obviously
hope they
thoughts,
don't. I mean, that's a whole nother.
yeah, thoughts become things, and what you wish, be careful what you wish for. But what I realized
Yeah.
is that if I can make somebody die, then they've no control over their life, which they do. And so that was something else I worked out. Anyway, so put to the story. When I started to forgive them in my mind, I kept seeing them like 3 days in a row. So thoughts are literally trapping us
Wow.
and attracting us. Like 10 years of not seeing them, I saw them 3 days in a row because I was so focused on
Wow.
forgiving them and letting go of what they did to me, that
Yeah.
it was manifesting straight away. And like when you say about, standing by the bus lane with the puddle, you unconsciously know from past patterns that that bus turns up at that time, there's water, and he's gonna splash, and you're gonna call him a cunt, and not looking right, and then you're gonna have a pissy day, and then you're gonna be all wet, and you're gonna go to the office all wet, and then the boss is gonna be annoying to you. It's that cycle of
Yeah.
destruction. And what's interesting is that it's like if you have wallpaper that's red, right, then you're going to look for matching carpet that's red, or a bed that's red, or sofa that's red, or even clothes. If the wallpaper was blue, then you look for matching blue stuff. And that mindset of being in that pattern of expecting the same thing to happen can be changed as easily as changing that wallpaper. And then naturally
Yeah.
you start to change the color of the bed, the floor, the carpet, the clothes. And
Yeah.
there's two dynamics in life: the black and the white, inside your head, outside your head. There's not three. You're alive, you're dead, sun, moon, night, day, not pregnant, pregnant.
Polarity.
It's
Yeah.
always two.
Yeah, yeah, duality. And that's just where we're living. But I mean, I think as much as you say it's simple, because it is, I mean, the actual logistics of it are very simple. It's very, very, very simple. But what's hard is like the human experience, because we get in our own way, and people, I think that's the biggest thing right now that I'm noticing with a lot of people that I've been talking to, that people are kind of like in this place where they feel like they can make changes and they should make changes, but they don't have a clue how to actually implement that. And I guess that's like the part that makes it difficult, is that if you aren't master of your mind, and I think that's it's like, I remember thinking this thought that I am driving myself crazy. And it sort of caught me off guard, because I was like, hold on a second, are there two of me? Like, who is I to be driving the self crazy? Like, does that implicate that there are two different aspects of me? And if so, what does that mean? And so then I was like, okay, so can I watch the self? Like, can I observe what's going on? And lo and behold, it's like all of a sudden I noticed that there was a part of me that was watching all of the thoughts happen, that was completely unattached to them emotionally. It was super neutral, this like neutral thing back here that's watching it, that would sort of be the voice in the head that's like, ooh, I really shouldn't have said that. Oh, you probably shouldn't do that. And it was like then trying to figure out a way to create enough space between them that I could actually control the other one. You know what I mean? And I think that's freaking hard for people. Like, how do you even get to that juncture in your life that you're then sort of feeling like, okay, I know that I can do something, but like, where do I even start?
So yeah, I've been thinking about this lately as well. Imagine a monk, man years ago, just nothing to do, just hunting, grazing, and farting around, just nothing to do, right? And then all of a sudden, these problems in our heads have occurred. Why? It's another person's influence on that person's existence. And so
Mm,
if man has created all these problems, then only man can fix them. So that
yeah.
means therapy for billions of human beings, right? Realistically, that's just not realistic.
Maybe ayahuasca, maybe plant medicine, maybe like a dark night of the soul.
So yeah, that stuff can bring them to the place where we were, say, at 50,000 years ago, and where after all this bullshit has gone, people can end up, right? I call it like a shortcut to getting to where you want to be, like when you take
Right.
ayahuasca, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But realistically, not everyone can take those drugs because it's a drug, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's because of man has created these problems that only man can fix them. So some kind of
Mm-hmm.
therapy, teaching, education. But how do you go inside of people's heads and mentor them for months and years?
Yeah.
There's no reset. The reset is what I'd like to call forests that have grown too big. One catches a light and burns the other, and they all die, and then it all starts over again. the nutrients in the ground, the seeds, and the trees are again. This generation, unfortunately, I believe, is fucked. And the only way to get out of this, back to where we were, essentially out of our heads, where you are just you rather than I, as you said a minute ago, you observing your thoughts. Well, if you just want to be in meditation all the time, well, there's no thoughts to observe because you're just in flow with one thought. It's the next generation, but the system has to change.
Yeah.
You can't change it because it's man that's created the problem. And I don't think there's enough man to get man out of all these problems,
It's so interesting. Like, I sort of wonder, because you know how you're talking about that guy that you were, Josh or whatever, who you were podcasting with, and
Yeah.
he was saying how he'd go into like a restaurant, and is he affecting that reality just by being there and observing it, and is it still happening when he's not there? And if it is, what is it, a completely different experience when he's not there, because somehow he's, and it's kind of cool, because when you look at like a lot of the, let's say, like occult secrets and the hermetic sciences and these things that are like so predating where we are today, they sort of teach a lot about how we're in this like symbiotic relationship, and that we do have an effect on our environments. And so then, I mean, when you look at history, like humanity has fallen so many times. Like, that's this like big, great, giant reset. And so like, sure, yeah, like maybe we're in a symbiotic relationship. You look at like as above, so below, or the micro to the macrocosm, and you've got, say, us when we eat food and we assimilate the nutrients, and the nutrients get into the cells, and then they have an effect on the cells, which thus have an effect on the rest of the organs, the glandular systems, on the body as a whole. And then, we go into relationships with other people, and who we are, our essence, our energy, has an influence on these people that we're in relationships with. And if it's a family structure, then you start to expand out to, okay, well, whose family, like they've got family, and extended families are all influenced by this one person, or by this like alchemy of two people coming together, right? And then when you look at our relationship with the earth, like it goes so big, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, all of this relationship. But is it possible? Because like right now we're looking at, say, this virus situation, and if it's real, and if it's what they say it is, and if it's deadly, is this maybe not like an earth reset in some ways, right? Like, have we gotten to that point where we're ready to fall again as humanity? Are we at that point?
The answer is yes. This is nature's
There's the reset.
eliminating the weak. Like, think about it, dead wood, right? All the bugs, they go to the wood that's already dead and like broken down, because it's just the way it is. It's not going to try and take down a fresh oak tree, because it's just not going to get anywhere. It's going to go to the wood that's already weak and has broken down within. Unfortunately, it's the weak people with a weak immune system that are going to be taken by COVID, because we're supposed to have strong immune systems, period, because a virus wants to not kill off its host. It wants to keep spreading it to as many people as possible. So the virus doesn't want to kill you. It wants to keep growing and spreading it and getting more. So it's the host that's weak, and it's not able to cope. But the thing about, when Josh went into the room, I know for a fact that, for example, I was out and about on my bike, and I wanted to have a takeaway, as I said, and I said, Mum, get it from this place. And then I came back and they had exactly the same dishes in the place that I wanted it from. So I created that. I remember one time she left the candle on, and she always checks every candle when she goes out. I observed her and that candle, and she forgot. I said, Mum, you forgot to blow the candle out. And I showed her the video on my phone, and she's like, oh my God. I said, don't worry. I made that happen. This is nothing to do with you. You've not got dementia. You're not losing your marbles. I made that happen. And every time this happens, I tell them, you do know your reality is not your reality. Your thoughts are not your thoughts. You think, oh, I want some fish and chips tonight, some Chinese. That was my thought that I put into your mindset, and I was miles away. So just imagine how many thoughts in your head are not actually yours. And that's scary,
so
because most of them are not.
True.
So when Josh, say, goes into the restaurant, let's say Josh is wearing a coat, a pink coat, right? Or a coat that their friends got. Josh walks in, their conversation changes. Oh, look, that person's got a coat that my sister-in-law's got. Oh, that Josh has got a pink coat. Oh, that's really bright, isn't it? Oh, speaking about bright, did you see the star float in the space? Oh, yeah, that conversation has changed because of Josh walking into the room. So Josh has had an effect on that energy in the room. And then their conversation will change which means that they were going to go to the toilet at say 9 o'clock. Their conversation lasted for 10 minutes. So now they go to the toilet at 9:10, which means everything has changed, you know? So
Right.
now,
Yeah. It's a new timeline.
so now the food arrives at 9:10. They now have to wait till 9:30 because the food's just arrived. Because if they'd gone before, they'll be fine. Or
Mhm.
they come back and the food's cold. So now they ask the chef, can you do it again? Because it's gone cold. So now all these factors have changed because of Josh walking into that room with his pink coat on, you know? So yes, he has had an effect on that room, both unconsciously and consciously, because if his energy comes in that room, everyone else is picking up his thoughts through his own energy. So now they might be thinking, oh, let's go to this football match next week. Well, Josh has come back from football match, but they didn't even
Yeah.
speak. So now they
Yeah.
choose to go to football. So yes, it's both.
Well, and it's cool because if Josh were consciously trying to affect his reality with intention, then that's like next level, because we're all walking around like super willy-nilly with like the way that we're thinking and feeling and all of the things that we're carrying, and we like brush up against everybody else. It's so interesting. Like usually, so whenever my husband and I like, we'll say we have like a bad day at work or something has happened, this exchange with somebody that's happened that's not pleasant or whatever, we always do like an inventory, like, hey, like what's different? Like what's different? So for example, there was this time in the summer, there was two people that like are super triggering that kind of came into like our space. We were trying to sit out in our apartment balcony and like enjoy a cold drink. And so it's so interesting. And he had this like reaction to this man who was asking really stupid questions. And for me, I think it's funny. I like to play with people when they're like that. But like my husband was kind of like agitated, and he was like really like short and blunt with the guy. And it was kind of funny, but also slightly like uncomfortable because the guy wasn't getting a hint and wasn't walking away. So anyways, eventually, because I kind of tried to, I was like, Colin, like, shh, try to shut him up a little bit. And afterwards, he kind of looks at me. He's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, no, you didn't. But I'm curious, like, because that's not your usual reaction to things. So like, what's different? Why did you react in that way today? So we're looking, he's like, okay, you know what? I've been listening to more rap music lately, and rap music, I find if I'm not aware, I get aggressive. I feel aggressive when I listen to rap music. Also, I ate a lot more carbs than I had vegetables yesterday, and my stomach feels a little bit off. And so we start talking about like all of these little things that have like kind of come into, so unconsciously come into his experience, that are going to change the way that he has this experience with this triggering guy, right? And normally if it was any other day, it would be a completely different experience. And so many people, it's like we're so unaware of ourselves, we're so unaware of our environments, that we don't know. We have like little radars. Like we could walk into a room and pick up like, ooh, that person has bad energy, I don't want to be here. And we could leave. We could literally make decisions on our lives based on the feedback that we're getting if we are paying attention. And most of us are so asleep. We don't really get the fact, like we hear like, you are what you eat, or you are what you most think about, but we do nothing differently. And so it's like the definition of insanity to expect different results while doing all of the same things that you've already done.
It's like when we say we are what we eat, it's like, yes, we are, and we're getting fat. And it's like, no, you literally are what you are eating. Like you are getting fat because you are eating, and you are becoming what you're eating. But you are, as in, if you give chickens, fish, grounded food, whatever, their cells will become that of a fish, right?
Right.
Dr.
Yeah.
Gundry, then if you heard this, right?
Yeah.
Because the cells in that fish, the chicken's eating it, the chicken is taking that food, replacing its cells with that new food,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
shredding off the rest. Over
Yeah.
generations of evolution, if you keep feeding something, that's going to become its new norm. And under a microscope, it will have the cells of a fish. And this happened with
Yeah.
KFC many years ago. The chicken was becoming translucent like a fish because
Ah,
they were feeding the chickens fish grounded whatever, right? So
right.
so the thing about, we are what we eat. We are literally, if we are eating crisps, Twiglets, KFC, burritos, our body is expecting essentially, let's just say the same of itself, a muscle, meat, right? We use our legs for muscle. We now need to replace that muscle with, say, muscle of a cow, right? For example, yeah? You're giving it other stuff. It's now going into that muscle, and our body's trying to take that so it can shred off what it had and use that to start again. And it's not got it. So now it's like, okay, what the fuck's going on? I need these proper nutrition to replace it with, but I haven't got it. So it's going to start to malfunction.
Yeah.
And so everything that people eat is going into our body, and people are literally becoming a diseased pack of crisps. They are literally becoming a chicken that looks like that is a fish because of
A fish chicken.
because because of what they are eating inside. And
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's, I mean, I used to be a practicing holistic nutritionist, and I stopped seeing clients, and I don't know if I ever will again, to be honest, because I get so frustrated. Like, and I know it's not easy. It's not easy to make changes, partly because there's such a high level of addiction in the foods that we're eating. Like, people don't realize that there is a team of scientists in the lab that are figuring out how to make these different flavor profiles literally react to the dopamine receptors in your brain, which is the same reaction that we get to things that feel good. So, like, sex and, sunshine and heroin and crack, like, it's all the same receptors, right? And so they're engineering this food to get us hooked on it, to get us completely hooked on it. So it's, I mean, even at that point, and this is where it's hard, is because there is such a level of, I don't even want to say brainwashing, because it's so unconscious, that when we're eating this food, it's literally altering our brain, altering the way we make decisions, altering what we crave and what we hunger for. And we're not even really in charge of that. And we think sort of, oh, I should eat healthier, but we're not doing it for the right reasons. To eat healthier because you don't want to be fat is not enough of a reason to make any decent changes. Some people make changes when they find out that they're dying and they're like willing to try like the last resort. But a lot of the times people just don't really want to make the changes. They're not suffering enough as a person who has extra fat on their body. They're not suffering enough to really put the work in to change the mind, because mostly it's the mind. The mind's like, oh my God, I'm craving bread. But what it's really saying is that there's certain minerals in wheat that my body needs. And the closest thing that my mind knows to these wheat minerals is white bread. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, or like chocolate, like I need magnesium, and my body knows what it needs, but my mind can say magnesium comes from chocolate because it's the only time I've ever noticed that it's there, but it's not like, we don't want the Mars bar or something like that. That's not really what the body is asking for, but the brain has been so hijacked by these chemical products that we're eating. It's like, nobody really wants to make the changes. They're so hard to do.
Yeah, well, the word you're looking for is lectins, right? So
Lectins are in a lot of things for sure, and they change the way that we experience hunger. Lectins sort of punch holes in the gut in so many ways. There's all sorts of issues with that, but
so yeah, lectins is the brain inside the food that we eat. So when we eat, say, a Mars bar, it's not the Mars bar that we want. It's, say, the lectins in the Mars bar. Let's just say bread, for example. The lectins in the grain that wants more of itself. So it's almost like a parasite hijacking a fly to take it to the water to lay its eggs, right? Which is the true story, right? And again, everything everywhere around us, it's somebody else's thoughts and brain taking over ours. That's just like the mind, as you said, but the body is something completely different as well. All the foods that we are putting in, and drugs and whatever, and sex, is giving our body this thing that we want more of that, and that's before we've even got control over the brain. So literally it's like, how do you stop weeds growing in your flower bed when there's always going to be pollen and seeds flying around? There's always going to be bees shitting there and birds pissing there, and cat, you're trying to stop nature from doing nature, which is why it's so hard to not ejaculate when you're having sex, because like that is the peak of existence at that point. I need to go through with it. Life is going to grow under the right conditions. You can't stop this shit. So when you realize, what if I can't control anything? Like, I want to help loads of people, I want to heal people, but unless they want to change themselves, I cannot do that. And then if they do want to change themselves, I can't then tell them my system because it worked for me, knowing that it will work for you, which you know it will do, because you've still got to go there and through the steps in your own time. Well, that could take forever. And it's like, well, it's either forever or you die. So then you realize, wow, I can't even teach people because they still have to do the work themselves. And so then it comes down to, I just need to be grateful that I have no problems, enjoy my life for me. If others ask for help, but just literally live your own existence, because this is what it's all about. Trying to influence people to live a lifestyle or life based on how they want it, a food industry, drug industry, whatever. And it's so simple yet so hard. And the answer is just do you, as much as you want to help everyone and friends and family, because literally we are on this planet for one person, and it's ourself. And
Yeah.
it's hard when you care for people, but it's when you go through those cycles, you literally come back to that answer, that there's nothing I can control but myself.
Yeah. And I
Sadly.
think that's where like the profundity in what, say, Gandhi said, like it's so simplistic. A lot of these like spiritual teachers have these like one-liners, and they're so, it's like it's so cliche it sounds, but like Gandhi, be the change. Like that is so much more profound, I think, than we can gather just hearing it once or twice. To literally, you almost have to come full circle to the fact where you realize that the only thing you have control of is you, is this one person. And if you are being in alignment with what you want to experience in life, that's the only thing you can ever do for someone else. You know, you can't show up and solve their problems for them. I've got a few friends that will come to me for advice, and I'm always like, oh, cool, this is fun. Like, so what's going on? And it's really hard for them. And I'm like, okay, so it's probably the answer here is probably like the one thing that you're avoiding that you actually just need to do. That's probably what the answer is. And yet you don't want to do it. And I can't tell you anything because it's your journey and you need to figure that out for yourself. What is the hardest part of this for you? And then go through that. And once you've gone through that, you can continue taking all of these steps in that direction. But it's like we can't really do anything for anybody else, because even like what's worked for me, sure, it might work for somebody else, but everybody else is so different. They actually have to be at that place where they're ready. And how can I say that they're ready or not? You know, I thought I was ready many times, you know, but until you're actually ready and you're like, actually, I'm done with whatever it is. If you've been poor for so long, if you have been overweight and you need to get things on track, if you have been lazy or whatever it is, and you're like, I'm actually done suffering in these ways and I'm choosing differently from now on. That's a threshold that you reach within yourself, and everybody has to do that on their own, you know. And I mean, I think like whatever, like if you do it in this life, great. And if you don't, when you die, you're gonna know everything, so it doesn't really matter. You probably have another chance to try again.
Right, let's start another topic. What comes to your mind right now?
I'm always thinking about death. I mean, that's my favorite topic, to be honest. I
Talk
don't
about
know if
death.
that's too dark for you.
No, 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 no,
Um,
no. Fine. I think about death every day. As in,
yeah,
I need to
yeah.
die. If I am I doing right now the thing that I want to do, getting the most out of it. If I was to die, would I wish I'd done it any different? So if I want extra chips in a restaurant, I think to myself, if I died, would I regret not having chips? If the answer is yes, I fucking order chips, right? No, seriously, no, because
That's awesome.
it's all about living, living life for the full. YOLO, you only live once. But it's like, are these chips going to clog my arteries if I am on the planet for another, say, 5 months? If the answer is yes, then I'll weigh it up. Yeah, I'll have half a portion. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my God, that's
Have you
so
got any? Have you
funny.
got any sweet potato chips instead? But you see the point, right? It's all
Baked, not
about
fried.
it's all about feeling the best you can right now. So when you think about death, what do you think about? Is there an afterlife or just
I mean, like, what is it? Is it even real? I don't know if I believe in death, to be honest with you. And I think that's like, you know, I wish it wasn't so taboo. There was a lady that lives in our building who, over Christmas, she arranged for like assisted suicide, and I'm just so fascinated. Everyone's like so like tiptoeing around it, like, oh God, Sharon, you know. And I'm like, oh wow. I'm like, you're brave. I'm like, all right. So I'm like, keep it warm for us out there. I'm like, let us know what it's like. Like, we'll see you on the other side. And she's kind of like, oh, okay. But I was the only one that didn't, you know, that wasn't like awkward with her. I'm like, hey, I heard tomorrow's the big day. And she kind of looked at me. And she had ordered, like the day before she was gonna die, she had ordered a limo with champagne and like had a bunch of her closest friends drive around for a few hours. And then she went to the hospital and had her assisted in the morning. And I'm just like, cool. Like, I don't know that I would ever do that. I sort of think I want to go naturally, but like, I don't know, you have to be a certain type of person to do that, you know? And everybody gets so weird about it. But I'm like, I don't know, is it death? Like, would a caterpillar going into cocoon would probably think it's dying, but then it emerges in this like metamorphosis, right? And then, I mean, say the butterfly lives its whole life and it dies and it becomes what? Ash, dirt, fertilizer for a tree. Like, what kind of life lives on from there? And what is death? Like, is it really like, it's not, I don't know, I just don't think it's the end. I think that that's kind of cute that we might think that we just have this like fleeting experience, but I don't think anything ever dies. Like, when you look at nature, it's so cyclical. You see spring, which is kind of in some ways pretty morbid, because spring is coming forth out of the death and decay of winter. And maybe not in every place, but there are seasons. Here in Canada, we obviously have crazy seasons. So right now, I mean, we're in death season. It's winter, it's cold, the grass is dead, the trees lost all of their leaves, everything is in this state of like hibernation, of like hanging on for dear life that they might reemerge in the spring. And nothing ever really dies fully. It always kind of comes back, and it's renewed and it's transformed. So when I think of like an actual death, like, I don't know, does it even exist? Or is it just like shape shifting, just dropping the body or the meat suit and shape shifting into like whatever it is that actually is life? And I think we can't really answer the question, what is death, until we know what is life. What does it mean to be alive? What even is this? Why are we here?
So, for example, if consciousness is in the physical body, right, then there is no afterlife. You're just dead, right? Because for me to be aware that I'm alive is the same awareness that I am dead, right? So if I die in the ground and you can see my brain deteriorating and bugs eating it, then there's nothing, right?
Is there nothing? Or what is like we were just talking about how you are what you eat. So now the beetles are full of you. And where do those beetles go? And what is their life like? Like what, like, I don't know.
So if a consciousness is in the brain, not the rest of the body, then you could say if the bugs hit the brain, then they get my energy, right? If, for example, it's in the whole body, then my awareness will be in the bug. So why am I not aware of myself in a bug, right? Because whether I'm alive or I'm dead, I'm still aware, period. So I'd be a beetle aware of my existence. But right now, I'm not aware that I'm a beetle, right? So therefore, it comes back to, if consciousness is in energy around, say, the body, then it's there when I'm not physically there. Yeah. Which means, are we seeing awareness? Because it's energy, and we know we see from our eyeballs, which I know is in the ground and it's been deteriorated. So how are we seeing with energy with our eyes? Because for us to know what sight is, it's eyes, right? So there's no eyes. Okay, so sound. Well, I've got no ears because they were also in the ground, right? So taste and touch. So basically, if you do all that, you close your eyes, put your hands over your ears, and you meditate until you become numb. That's essentially what it's like to be dead, right? Hands over your ears, yeah. Hands over your ears, over your nose, you can't smell, close your eyes, meditate, no thoughts, and there's no physical movement. You can't feel your body. That's the closest to death that I've worked out, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But then I'm still aware. So therefore, if I take away my body, am I still aware? And the answer is, well, I don't know, because my body is still here. So that's like, okay, well, is consciousness in the brain or the body? If it's in the ground, then there's nothing. But what if it isn't? So then that me being aware of my own existence is on another rule, another playing field. Yeah. Me saying that I'm aware, or I'm aware of me living and dying, isn't in my body at all. So then what is it? It's the energy. So then you can say, well, energy is consciousness. And then you can say God is energy, God is consciousness, which is correct. Which means after you die, if you are aware, then how are you aware? Like, with your five senses, taste, touch, smell, well, that's all in the ground, So then it's like, well, if it is energy, then your energy attracts to another living thing at that same vibration, and you merge into one, and your awareness then becomes through that cow, through that cup, through that other human being. Yeah. And then it could be like, wow, if that is the case, then let's just say I was reincarnation of Jesus. I am seeing how Jesus saw the world through me, which means me trying to be aware in this body is not the same as me being reincarnated and then going back to, I remember this wise person called Oliver. He did a podcast. He lived in England. It has to, you've got to die in order to be aware that you were reincarnated, as opposed to me trying to think, am I going to be reincarnated? Does that make sense? So you can only be aware of your past life now.
If you are aware now, yeah.
So it's like, I don't know how to explain this. I can't be aware of my past, my future life. I can only be aware of the past life. And in order for me to be aware of my next life, I've got to die. It can only go in a forward cycle, for example, which is why it's so hard to get out of patterns. Because if you've got trauma you didn't deal with when you were, say, 8 years old, right, of parent abuse or whatever, it's very hard when you say 40 to go back and visit that. That's why it's so hard for people to heal themselves. Do you know what?
Yeah.
I used to believe in reincarnation, right? And afterlife. And then I convinced myself out of it based on the fact that if consciousness is in the body, then you're dead and it's in the ground. After this chat, I've just made myself become aware of something else. It's like at present moment, you can't think of past lives and future lives. You can only be present in your body and think of the past life, because you don't know you don't know, let's say your energy is a vibration, right? A frequency. Someone else on the planet is eventually going to be the same frequency, right? In say 100 years time. My energy is going to be the same frequency as that person, and it's going to merge into one. They're going to have the same thoughts as me, right? Only then,
possibly your
then
thoughts.
only then will they know that they had a past life called Oliver. But I can't think of a past life. I've got to work this out. I'm working as I'm talking.
And it's hard too, because it's like, what is time? Because if you look at a lot of like these universal sciences, they're saying there is no such thing as time. So is it past lives or is it simultaneous lives? Is awareness, like, are you just like, it's like you only have access to Oliver awareness because perhaps the television is on the channel of Oliver and this is Oliver's life, and I'm never going to get any other information aside from this limited perspective of what it means to experience life in humanity as Oliver, unless I fully change the channel. Right? And so do you have to die in order to change the channel? This is where like a lot of mysticism, has always been alive from way beyond where we are today, years and years and years ago, where they would have these like mystical experiences of being able to allegedly hop into different dimensions, different lives, different experiences. You hear of people like Nostradamus, for example, who was literally talking to future people in the past at like simultaneous times, like, and making these predictions about the future based on what he was able to see through looking. He had like this black obsidian mirror and he had spells and rituals that he practiced, and he was into kind of some of those like what you might call dark magic. But where is he getting that information from, and why was he so accurate? It's like, what is time? Like, I think what's hard is that we are trying to figure out what is completely ineffable. It's not figure outable because we're limited by Oliver's consciousness, Jesse's consciousness, by our five senses, which are so limiting because they are defining for us what it means to see, which means we have no other way to look at what sight is. Whereas if we were to talk about the third eye, what is that? What kind of sight are we getting from that? Is it real? Is it, hocus pocus? Like where does all of this stuff come from?
So what came to me when you're saying that is, at present, one can only be aware of its past life. When I die and I'm reincarnated, that person can only be aware of its past life, which is me right now, for example, right? Because you've got, as you said, you've got to change that channel. You've got to die in order for the whole process to start again. Because
maybe
if everything gets bigger and grows from the last one, that tree grows from the last acorn. Well, I've come from my dad's sperm. I've come from that last tree. I have got to lay an acorn, sperm, and reproduce in order for that new life to exist, which it doesn't until I drop the acorn and I sperm and I create life. So you can only be aware of your past life. You cannot be aware of your future life. But as intelligent beings, we are aware that if we've had a past life, then there's going to be a future life. But you can only be aware of that once that transition has gone over. And you know what? I always used to love the fact that when I die, there's someone else. It's like, well, I can't wait to die. Like, what's next?
Yeah.
When your friend's saying, your neighbor saying, I'm going to die, you're like, wow, see on the other side. Because in our mindset, there is another side. And, they're on holiday somewhere. And they're like, come on up. There's fucking theme parks, there's food, there's great restaurants. And like, wow, can't wait to die. Not literally today, but you want to live your life and then start the next one, yeah? It's like going to Bali, then going to Australia afterwards, yeah? And then the Philippines. To me, that's what it used to be like. And I convinced myself out of it. And when I was 21, I did believe I was reincarnation of Jesus, right? But then I had to understand, okay, well, I'm not physically him. Because if his awareness was as I said, in the ground, it's gone. But the energy of his brain activity and his wisdom would have become my energy. So was it I am Jesus or Jesus is me? Right.
Well, and there's another way to look at that too, because there are, certain, I've been reading a lot from this one specific author who is a hypnotherapist, and she had some crazy, over the 40 years of her practice, interactions with different people. And she said that it's very, very possible, because she would meet a lot of people that would claim to be, say, reincarnations of Cleopatra or reincarnations of Isis, or like these like deity type figures. And what she was learning from these sessions is that you can have the impression and the imprint and the memories and the consciousness of these deities without actually having lived those lives. But you would have selected to have those in your experience, in your consciousness, because it helps you with whatever you're trying to do on the planet this time around, with whatever your mission is, whatever your goal is, whoever Oliver strives to be, let's say. So it's almost like going to the library, and it's like, right, okay, I want to go into this experience, but I need to have the Christ consciousness in order to have the experiences and the lessons that I want to have. So I'm going to go to the library and I'm going to rent Jesus Christ, and I'm going to take that into my possession and take it into my being. And then I might go over here and rent like this other one of like this warrior, because there's some things I'm going to need to go through that are going to require some strength and some grit. So I'll have that. And then I'll have also this other consciousness, whatever is mine, but I'm going to have all of these impressions of these other ones, because I need that wisdom and that guidance in my life.
So you were saying a minute ago, like there's no time, of course. So to me, when you say that, it's like just an ocean, and there's a tsunami, and as the water just sort of crashes into one, it just all becomes one. It just merges, right? So you've got like 5 ice lollies all becoming one, right? Or whatever, like just the same coming into one. So the past and the present and the future merges into one. So any past lives and future lives, it will all merge into one. But yeah, I need to reassess this reincarnation thing, because it's all to do with the frequencies. You know, if for me to say, think that with Jesus, for example, it can't be his body, because that's gone. It has to be his energy, right? His frequencies.
Right.
So is Jesus aware that he's now in a future person called Oliver? No. Am I aware that I might be the reincarnation of Jesus? Yes. Why? I'm picking up his thoughts. So when one dies, it's really weird. It's very complicated.
Right? It's like recycling. Think of like recycling, right? If you say you put all of your plastic in your glass and you sort all your stuff and it goes to the plant, what do? They take it, they melt it all down, and they make new things. So it's like that initial one doesn't exist anymore. It's not that it's dead and it's isolated and contained. It merges with the all, and the all is like a kaleidoscope, just re-expressing itself constantly in different shapes and colors and forms and sounds and tastes and whatever, right? All of what it means to experience, at least for our third dimensional existence on the planet Earth. But it's like, oh, it's like so delicious to kind of just contemplate, like what are these concepts? And like, I think like one of the best examples of what it means to be wise is, can you like take your dogma and just put it to the side and be like, okay, I'm going to try on the belief system of somebody who believes in reincarnation. I'm going to explore it and see what it feels like. And then when I'm done exploring that, I'm going to like put that aside, and I'm going to put on the dogma of someone who is an atheist, believes that there's like legit nothing. And I'm going to explore that. Like when we get so attached to one thing, we're so stupid because we're so limited. It's like, no, it's this way and it's only this way, and I'm committed to my ignorance. Whereas when you start to say, let me just reformulate, what is this? Maybe I'm ready to think about this reincarnation again. It's like that ability to be flexible and fluid, because it's the same thing if we're looking at the recycling and the plastic all going to get melted down, or the ocean, and we take one scoop of ocean into our hands and we study it under a microscope. What we find in one part of the world is going to look different than a same scoop of the same ocean, the same body of water across the planet. It's going to have completely different organisms, biology, everything is going to be different about it, but it's the same thing, right?
So when I was 21 and I had my awakening, right, I believed that my grandma's spirit was here, because I had no friends and I wanted somebody and whatever. So she came and she was making lights flicker and my Mac turn on and off. There were signs and notes. She was there to me at that time. I would say, Grandma, if I should go out and do something, if I should tidy my room, tell me. My Mac would turn on, the lights would flicker, I'd hear a knock, the door would swing open, right? So she was there. Awesome. Looking back, I realized it was my own energy charging up that Mac to turn on, because I was expecting her to come from the Mac. So it's what I was focusing on, would charge it. My energy would be going into the light bulb, because to make it flicker, my energy would either pull the door open or the window was open downstairs. And I unconsciously knew that. And I knew at this time, you know, it's probably going to be some wind and it would pull open. I found ways to counteract the fact that she wasn't there. And like you said, we have the ability to change our mindset. I would love to believe that she was there and she is still here, but is just not here anymore. I know if I wanted to believe that she was here, my own energy would do those same things again. It would make the light flicker, the Mac turn on, I'd see feathers, lights would change at the traffic lights, I'd find money. Because I made myself believe that even if she wasn't here, I had the ability to do it myself. But if she was here, then it's the same thing. I can do it all myself, or she can do it. It's all about that merging into one.
Right.
So,
or is it a relationship? Is it that she's like, you've heard of the slit experiment
double
in
slit
quantum
experiment.
physics?
Yeah. So when I observe it,
Right.
she stops,
Right.
and then when I look away, she turns the Mac on. And when I don't, you know, when I say knock if you're here, when I'm waiting for her to knock, she doesn't. And then when I look away, she fucking knocks, right? And you can never ever catch that marble being thrown.
Yeah.
It's always when you're not looking at it. And it was like, it's only when I stop observing it that it happens. And so yeah, go on.
Well, and does you thinking about it give life to it? Is it the opposite? Is it that when you're observing, you're getting what you're expecting to see, and when you're not observing, things are as they are, and you wouldn't have a clue as to what they really are because you're only seeing what you're expecting to see. And the second that you look, it's like, oh, there it is. It's happening again because I'm expecting to see a sign, and so I'm seeing the sign. So does your intelligent thought, your intention, give life to what you are looking to observe? So is it both? Is it that, yes, you're creating it, but also she's dormantly waiting for you to send energy to give her life, right? Like the Egyptians were so obsessed with the afterlife. They believed that if you had all of these certain rituals that you could actually live on. And there's so many, like you look at Hermes Trismegistus, and he was meant to be the third incarnation of the ancient deity Thoth. And he had come through 2 different incarnations then before he became Hermes, and he had all of this information. Like, is that the truth, or what is happening there? Is his belief in it giving life and giving access to these things that he believes are there, and we can choose to see them or we can choose not to see them depending on our free will choices?
So it's all of them. Each one, as you know, is a particle, a wave, and it's both. And that's what's so incredible, because when I was 21, there was this magician, hypnotherapist, illusionist called Darren Brown. Don't know if you've seen him, right, or know about him, right?
Mm-mm.
He predicted the lottery, and I was obsessed with him and how he did it, right? And basically, to cut a long story short, there's a thing called crowd of wisdom phenomenon, which is he got a group of people to guess, years and years and years and years ago, this person, like 1700s, they got loads of people to guess the weight of a cow. Collectively, they all wrote down a number. They did the average medium of that number. So they added it all up, 149 kilograms, 152, 160. They divided it by however many people there was that predicted. That equaled the weight of the cow. So he understood all this, and he did the same with the lottery. The lottery numbers had been called at, say, 7:30. They go on TV at 8:00. Between 7:30 and 8:00, he got a group of people to all write down one number. He wrote down all the numbers, and he did the average number for each one. He then put the TV on at 8:00, right? And he predicted in front of him the exact lottery numbers. So these crowds of people could predict and tune into the energy of the production team, who had already become aware and acknowledged these numbers. Complete opposite side of the planet, right? And he got all the numbers, right? And so I was obsessed with this, and I started to become the mindset of Darren Brown. I was going out, I was buying lottery tickets, I was doing tricks in the street, he basically took over my mind, right? I literally became Darren. I was talking like him. I was hypnotizing people on the street. I was making people give me the wrong change, like give me £20 rather than 10. So I'd observe them giving me 20 rather than 10. They would give me 20, because I saw him do a trick where he was at the horse racing, and he gave them the losing horse ticket, right? And then she gave him the winnings for the winning ticket, because he says, this is the dog you're looking for.
Yeah.
At this
so he's a hermetist scientist, like that.
Hypnotist, illusionist, mentalist.
Yeah.
And
But that's what he's doing. He's using the natural laws of the universe so that he can control his reality. He's just playing law against law. Like, he's brilliant. I need to look this guy up.
so yeah, on YouTube, he honestly, he made people, I can't even explain. Darren Brown YouTube, the great art robbery where he stole this £1 million painting he's fucking incredible. Anyway, so I basically became him by the belief that I was him in my mindset. So in my mindset, rather than my dad saying, don't do that, or God saying, you shouldn't kill this person, whatever, in my mindset, it was Darren saying, right, I wanted to go up to that window and say, here's my money for my chips, and just know and believe and have no doubt that she's going to give you £20 back rather than 10. And I was expecting her to give me £20 back. She gave me £20 back, right? You're going to go to get a car parking ticket and 2 is going to come out. And then 2 was coming out. And it was like, oh my fucking shit, what is going on? Right. And then just all this amazing shit was happening. Like, and I'd find money on the floor. And all because I made myself believe that I was Darren Brown in my mind. So I can make myself believe that grandma was here. And maybe just by believing she is, she comes back. My mum said this the other day. Maybe you believing that she wasn't here. And maybe she's like, well, if you don't fucking believe me, then what's the point? And she's waiting for me to ask.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? And just by
yeah.
asking, you receive, as you know. And I would love to believe in reincarnation and afterlife, and she was here. If I can convince myself that she might have been here, because up until this moment, I believe it was all me because I found flaws in my theories. But if I can come up with a theory, like you said, about you're only aware of your past life and you're not aware of the future because you don't know who you're going to reincarnate, basically. If I can convince myself and I haven't got a counteractive argument, then this could be my way back into the spirit world and afterlife, reincarnation, and grandma type of shit. Because either way, whether she was here or not, by believing she was, I was making stuff happen. Lights flicker, TVs turn on and off, thinking about people and they would arrive, I'd find money. I had these abilities and powers, which I've never had since she left. So whether she was here or it was just me believing she was here, I got my energy up to a certain frequency that I was making this shit happen. And I'd love to have a reason to go back. And you might be the trigger for that. Because I've really prayed.
Like,
it's
what
7 years,
if,
brother.
like 7 years? What if, like, so, you know how we were talking at the beginning about how, like, say Josh goes into the restaurant and he influences his reality, blah, blah, blah. So what if, like, it's like that same idea that regardless, like, your belief has the ability to determine. So if you choose to believe in that there is no reincarnation, then in your reality there isn't. Then whatever happens to you when you die, who knows? But if you choose to believe in reincarnation, is that enough to make it real and completely change your reality? In which case, what's possible for that person when they die? You know, like, is it like, are we influencing things beyond this life and into the next based on what we believe? Because I've heard there is no such thing as hell. But for people that have done past life regressions and they experience a hell, it's because that's where they were expecting to go. They had been, indoctrinated by their religion to the point that they believed that they were that rotten to the core, they were that bad, they were that evil, whatever they did wrong in their lives, that they were going to hell. And so they arrived there only to find out that they were there as long as they needed to be and realize, oh, I don't actually have to be here, I can leave. Like, oh, okay. But it's like, that's what they expected. And so into the afterlife, they were still consciously affecting their afterlife experience based on what they believed when they were living.
See, this type of chat gives me a mental orgasm. It really fucking like,
I know,
just
right?
makes me like, oh my God. Because it's like,
yeah.
Because when I was becoming aware, and it was everything, afterlife, ghosts, spirits, and it was just like the highest drug I've ever felt in my life, right? And I've not had that since 21, right? And, Jesus, 21st century, after, 21st century is based on Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
0 BC,
Pisces,
after BC. So in 2014, I was 21 on the 28th of Jan, which is the 1st, in the 21st century. So I was linking all these patterns of 7, right? Because I believed I was Jesus. I was linking all these patterns, right? And the feeling and the vibration of how I would think and go out and it would happen. It was there. I'd think of a car number plate and it would come next to me. How the fuck did that happen? It was just like I was on a drug. And it was incredible. And the only reason why that drug disappeared is because I looked at my parents and I realized, oh my God, I now have to fix their life, because if I don't, I'm going to come back and they're going to be divorced. And then my energy drops. I got flu, which I'd never, ever had before. 7 years at this exact same time, 7 years ago, I came off medication for Tourette's. I've been on it since I was 12 years old. Powerful
Really?
medication, which is for schizophrenia
Wow.
people, to control the
Yeah.
voice, control brain activity. I came off that medication and I've never had such awareness in my whole life, because I'd been in my head my whole life. And then I was in
Yeah.
deep meditation. Grandma came, whatever. And then I had a near-death experience where I almost crashed in my car because I was speaking to grandma. I was not aware. All of a sudden, I came out of my head. There was a car right there, and I almost crashed, and I went up the curb, and I missed it. And then grandma said, everything's going to be okay. Literally, she went, never spoke to me again up until that point. So
Wow.
this thing about being in your head, we only change after major events, right? Near-death experiences
So
or whatever.
true.
But then I didn't want her to go. So why did she stop? But then it's all about me not being in my head and just living life outside the head, which is the whole point. Like, we are not living, we are in our heads, in the past, in the future. So as you said, maybe just by turning on the belief that she might be here, I can seek signs that she is here, even if it is my energy focusing on that and making it happen. I'm never going to truly know, because when I observe her,
Well, you will. When you die, I think you'll know when you die.
I believe she's here. When I don't observe her, she's not. I can do it myself without her. She can do it without me observing. It's this fucking complex thing of the double slit experiment, where it knows
Yeah.
you're looking at it, and when you are looking at it, it knows that you
You
are
get what you want to see.
And I had the, telekinesis, where you make things move, right? I put
Yes.
tin foil or £20 note on a toothpick stick, and I stuck it in an orange. And when I was observing it, it was spinning. When I became aware that I was observing it, it stopped. So
Yeah.
it's almost like, just imagine you're about to orgasm and you can hold it for as long as you can. And then when you sort of let go, you come, right? It was almost like when I was observing that thing, it was like, don't come, don't come, don't come, don't come. And it would keep spinning. When I was aware
Right.
that I was going to come, it stopped spinning. So when I became aware that I was observing it, it stopped. But when I was just in that motion of holding onto the orgasm, right, it was spinning.
That's
So
so
it
crazy.
knew that I was watching it. And so the energy, like, in my mindset, I saw a magnet of pulling and pulling, pulling and pulling, pulling and pushing, right? And it only changed when I was aware of what I was trying to get it to do, because it was doing what it's supposed to do anyway, which was moving. And there's a guy on YouTube, right? He spends an hour and he records it for an hour. He puts a rock on this side, he puts a car, he puts a pen, he puts anything, and he films himself for an hour, and the rock falls off. You could say it's fake. It's not fake. He has a
Wow.
rock, he has a car, whatever. And he makes the car move, he makes the tinfoil move, he makes the rock just fall off, and it takes an hour of meditation, but it
Wow.
falls off.
So
So when you put all
crazy.
this into factors of what I was doing, grandma was doing, whatever, what this guy's doing, this shit really is real. And I've got
If you believe.
if you believe, that's the whole point. You have got to believe it in the first
Yeah.
place in order to expect it. And
So
I
then,
was,
like, that's the hard thing, though, is that, like, when you're not believing, does it still exist? That's like the primordial question. And it's yes, it does, but you're not plugged in. You have to
yeah.
plug in.
It's like, if Josh goes into that room, that the conversations are still going to be there. If he is observing from the outside, they're picking up his thoughts, so their conversation changes. If Josh physically walks in the room, they now observe him and their conversation changes. It's all three of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, as I said, this topic of conversation really makes me wild. Yeah, it's like a fox, I don't know, smelling another dog's ass, right? You know how they get excited, they sort of, oh my god,
Or like they're on a scent. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
exactly. This makes me like,
Yeah.
oh my god, actually raises my energy
Yeah.
when this stuff happens, because once you become wise and you work it all out, there's nothing really more to work out. Afterlife, is there a god? Okay, yeah, now what? So my life has been boring for 7 years, and this is what used to excite me, what I spend all day thinking about. Is there an afterlife? Is there death? What happens when you die? Is there a god? This was psychics. I'll do psychics all the time. And I realized
Yeah.
about psychics is, when I was blocking their energy from picking up what I wanted them to say, they couldn't pick up shit. When I was projecting what I wanted them to say, I'm going to find love, I'm going to have money, they picked it up. Right?
Yeah.
I wanted to be president of the United States, right? And they were picking up, you're going to be in politics. And then I call back another time and I've changed my mindset of, I want to be, say, a footballer or whatever. They pick up football. So the psychics are tuning in to your current thoughts. like there's no future because he's told you, you're now expecting this to happen. Like you're going to find love. So you're waiting for it because this psychic dude told you.
Well, and it's like in, who is it? I think Bruce Lipton writes a book. He's a biologist and he's so fascinating to listen to, but he writes a book called The Biology of Belief. And so from a biology perspective, how belief actually works. And he became interested in this because he was looking at all of these, like, let's call them spontaneous remissions or whatever, these cases that like really made no sense when it comes to science. So they're just kind of brushed under the rug. And he, pulled up cases like, for example, a guy had stage 4 kidney cancer and his oncologist gives him 6 months to live. And he's like, right, okay. So he goes home and 6 months later he dies. They do the autopsy and they cannot find the cause of death. There's not enough cancer on his liver. In fact, it's like completely regressed from the last scan he had. And yet the only thing that they know is that he thought he was going to die in 6 months and he died. They literally could not find the cause of death. So it's like one of those like cold cases that gets swept under the rug. And these are sort of some of the experiments that he was bringing forward. He had, one guy, I think he was a hypnotherapist, and he was working on what he thought was a really, really bad case of eczema. And it was like what he had seen is this guy's body completely covered in what he thought was eczema. So slowly, it took them close to a year to eventually work this skin condition into complete non-existence. And he got a call from this man's dermatologist and the skin specialist asking him how he did this, because this man did not have eczema. He had some rare incurable disease. And so in the meantime, this guy now finds out that what he just did was impossible. And he had people seeking him out because they said, oh, I heard you could cure this incurable disease, but he could never do it again because that oncologist or that dermatologist told him what you did is not possible. So he bought into the belief that what he had just done was not actually possible and he could never do it again. And it was like all of these like interesting cases of when people's belief has literally altered what's possible in their lives.
Okay,
There's science. I mean, it's crazy.
I need to check something. Right, so I'm gonna stop the video, right, and I'm gonna press record again because I don't want Zoom to cut off after say a certain time because on the free period or something like that. One sec.
I think they've given more though. Like I just got a notification that they've given more time.
Do you know how long?
What time is it now? They said I think it was free for over an hour.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna press pause 1 sec.